Hey everyone, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today I'm talking about you being near a crime scene, because if you've been near a crime scene, your mobile phone may actually make you a suspect, and here's what's going on. Now, this is coming from a report from Wired, and I just found this absolutely interesting, and here's the backstory. In 2018, 23-year-old Jorge Molina was arrested and jailed for 6 days in suspicion of killing another man. Now, the police in Avondale, Arizona, which is about 20 miles or so from Phoenix, held Molina for questioning, and according to the police report, officers told him that they knew 100% without a doubt that his phone was at the scene of the crime based on data from Google. This is insane because Molina wasn't there, but he had lent an old phone of his to a man that the police later arrested for the crime, and the phone was still signed into Molina's Google account and therefore tracking it. The information about Molina's phone came from what's known as a geofence warrant, and this is a relatively new and increasingly popular investigative technique that police are using to track suspects' locations. Traditionally, police identify a suspect and then issue a warrant to search that person, their home, their belongings. This is the reverse. They are looking for all the phones in the area, and by virtue of that, are then talking to suspects. So here's what happens. The police start with a time and a location, and then they send a request for data to Google or whatever other tech company about the device in the area, and then the companies typically supply anonymous data on the devices in the area. Police then use their own investigative tools to narrow down the list. They then may ask for more specific information, often like an email address or a name of an account holder, or the phone itself, like the numbers and all of that, to basically narrow down the list even further. Now, critics are saying, obviously, that this is a bit of an invasion of privacy, often subjecting many people to an unconstitutional search. So, in a rare step recently, 2 judges have actually denied requests for geofence warrants and have questioned whether they comply with Fourth Amendment protection for searches. Lawmakers and activists see the court options, or rather opinions, as a step forward on the potential ban in this practice. And so a New York State Assembly member, Dan Quart, said, this is as clear as day, a fishing expedition that violates people's basic constitutional rights. So this is obviously a very serious issue, and Quart, as well as a state senator, Zelnor Myrie, introduced bills that would prevent authorities from using gathered data from geofence warrants in the state of New York. And basically, they're saying it should never be used in a courtroom. Now, this practice is relatively new, but it's becoming increasingly common. Google reported a 1,500% increase in requests in 2018 compared with 2017, and obviously it's going to continue year over year as the police catch on to this new tactic, very similar in the way that they are using DNA databases to catch potential criminals or reactivate cold cases. The Golden State Killer, for example, was caught when they were able to get a sample of his DNA and search through a database and find a relative of the Golden State Killer. Now, the New York Times reported that the company received as many as 180 requests per week in 2018, and privacy experts told Wired, where this article is coming from, that it isn't just Google. Apple, Uber, and Snapchat have all received similar requests. Now, I can see this as being a very, very serious problem, especially if you are living in a high crime area. If you're living in an urban environment, there are some areas that are just, have more crime. So, for example, living in Chicago, we have an absolute ton of handgun deaths. Most of that is concentrated into specific areas of Chicago. And so by virtue of that, if I am simply an innocent person going through my day-to-day life with my mobile phone, I could potentially be connected to multiple sites or multiple scenes of crime simply by being in proximity with them consistently. And so that would obviously open up things like possibly racial profiling or other types of demographic profiling, and on and on and on. This is actually a very serious thing because the police aren't necessarily doing the work here. They're letting Google and all of that just identify everybody in the area. And then from there, they get to whittle down who they think maybe seems to fit the description of a potential killer or violent act or criminal or whatever that is. And so that is a little concerning. just given everything that we've seen, since George Floyd and all the protests and all of that, this has the real potential, I think, to spark a whole bunch of debate, as well as maybe another round of protests if the world really starts to understand and know this, as opposed to just one-off acts of violence. We may have an entire system here that could be designed to look at an entire group in a population and say, you guys live in this area, so clearly you guys are harboring criminals, or you're criminals yourself. I think there's a lot of things that can be done with this, in a negative light. And here we are. It's technology working in reverse to help us, or in this case, not. So that is your news of the day. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm glad these two judges came out and blocked this. I'm glad New York State basically said, no, this is a Fourth Amendment violation, and they're going to create their own bill. But it also underscores the point that we, as Americans, don't have a federal law for our own data protection for things like this, as well as things like the GDPR. That's a very serious problem, and as these things come to light, we really need to start pushing our elected officials to start enacting laws that protect us from overreach like this. That is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.